This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. Rabbi Tuvia Teldin. We're at Ground Zero now, together with Colonel Jacob Goldstein, who's the Chief Chaplain for the Army National Guard here for New York State. Colonel Goldstein, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Teldin.
First of all, I want to ask you, of course, we're at a very holy site, a special site, a place where you've spent many, many hours and days during the course of the past months. Tell us, where were you at 9/11 and what did you do at that time as the head of chaplain for the National Guard?
I was actually about to attend a meeting at one of my offices that I do when I'm not in the Army, and someone said there was a fire in the World Trade Center. We went to see, look at the fire, and I saw the second plane go into South Tower.
So what happens when that occurs? You go right into action, and what happens?
Well, I immediately realized that something terrible had happened. Shortly thereafter, I received a phone call that we're mobilized, and I immediately headed to Manhattan.
Now, how did you react when you first came here and saw the devastation that was taking place? What went through your mind and your heart?
I was totally overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start. It was just, the situation was chaotic. It was very hard to react. And everybody was in a state of shock. From whoever you saw, they just couldn't believe what was happening. People were running, people were coming in, and people were coming out. Things were just happening. They had to get control of the site. The police department did. Things were just happening, and for me, I was just overwhelmed by the devastation.
Now, as a chaplain, your responsibility really, I suppose, is to give that kind of strength and faith and a inner motivation for people to be able to go through the kind of things that we're going to be seeing and experiencing here. That must be a very difficult job.
It sure was. It was extremely difficult. Realizing there were hundreds and hundreds of people at that time trapped beneath the rubble. Everybody's minds, their adrenaline was pumping to attempt to save those people. Everybody, whether you're the chaplain, you're a policeman, you're a fireman, no matter what you were going to go and do something to help these people.
Now, you, of course, as a Lubavitcher Chassid, taking the position that you have, which is to be the chief chaplain, not only for, of course, the rabbis and the rabbinical staff, but also for all of the Catholic and Protestant chaplains. How do you relate to them in terms of energizing and being able to mobilize everybody to take on this tremendous responsibility?
We don't have that many rabbis in the Guard. Most of my chaplains are not Jewish, various denominations and faiths. Soldiers, especially chaplains, know what they have to do. I immediately started making my phone calls to the various chaplains that I have off a phone that I was surprised that was working. And everybody had already by then received phone calls. They were mobilized and they were rolling towards New York City. As the president said, let's roll. And they were rolling.
They were rolling.
They were rolling. And chaplains did what they have to do. In a situation like this, you don't counsel people of your faith. You counsel everybody. And there's no such thing as Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, Islamic, Buddhist, or whatever is out there. A person is hurting, you counsel them. A person wants to pray, you pray with them. That's how it works, and that's exactly what we're doing out here.
Now, can you tell us on 9/11 some of the experiences that either you or some of your other chaplains had as far as the type of advice they were giving and the chaplaincy services they were giving?
Basically, essentially, our job, our mission was to make sure that our primary care is, of course, soldiers and their needs and the experiences that they experience, and to sit down to talk to them to see what they were going through and what they were seeing and feeling and how their emotions were. Our job was a large mission, so a 24/7 mission, especially initially and still is now. And what we did was to help everybody. Now, many things happened here. I can relate to you within the first, it's a little more than a week after 9/11, we had Rosh Hashanah here. The calendar came, the date came. And I immediately, within a couple of days of being here, I started thinking ahead of me. I knew we were going to be here and knew we were going to have to do things. And, the Rebbe always would speak in Farbrengens that, to always look forward, always be forward-thinking, always forward-looking. And that's the training we have as the soldiers as well. And I began preparing here for Rosh Hashanah services at Ground Zero.
So what happened here on Rosh Hashanah? What did you do?
Well, for Rosh Hashanah, we blew shofar at Ground Zero in this area at 3 different places. It's like if you look at the area, it's a box. It's kind of a square, rectangle, however you want to call it. And the 3 different parts of this place, on both days of Rosh Hashanah, we blew skias and we had short services. After all, everybody was in the rescue. We were in the rescue operations, and people didn't have very much time, and they wanted to hear the shofar and they wanted to say some words of prayer, but they didn't have the kind of time that would allot you to stand there for an hour or two. That would be even I myself would find that difficult to do. And I remember that as soon as we took the shofar in my hands to blow the first time the tzkias, I had tremendous difficulty in doing it. The tzkias didn't come out. I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed by the thought. I was overwhelmed by the knowledge of where I was standing, that within feet of where I was blowing the shofar, there were people, they were attempting to rescue and save people's lives.
Now, you mentioned also, of course, the Rebbe has always inspired us and directed us to look forward, to be positive, and to keep the proper perspective on these types of situations. How, as a person in your position, having been in Grenada, having been in the Gulf War, having gone through the experiences you've gone through, what inspiration do you draw from the Rebbe's teachings as far as being able to continue with your work and do what you need to do?
The Rebbe's teachings are always a light for us in terms of going forward. Actually, it was the first Friday night that I was here. It was we were here a couple of days, and I looked inside my army vehicle, and I found one of the Rebbe's thoughts of the week, and that it was among my things, that I have, and. There was a very interesting thought there. That the Rebbe's thought was that talked about sorrow and what to do to overcome. It was to do it. It was in one of the parashas, and what the Rebbe's message was that no matter how bad things are, if we look to Hashem, to God, we can overcome that. And it was interesting that here. The Ground Zero, you have no idea how many people would come over to say, can you do a prayer with me, chaplain? I'm not Jewish, is that okay? I mean, they realized early out that I was not.
But you were there for everybody.
I remember the Jewish faith, and I was there for everybody. We had an interesting happening. We put up a flags. There were they had to go look for flags. We didn't have any flags here, and one of the soldiers came over to me, and then one of the cops did and said, can you lead us in prayer? I said, let's bless the flag. And before I knew it, there were 300 people standing around.
Really?
And in a semicircle, we said a prayer over the flag and the country and the people and everybody here. Then we hoisted the flag. Everybody stood at attention, saluted, and within seconds, that same crowd just disappeared back to work. It was a very emotional moment when you do that, because it told us that our country that can't get us down.
Right, but you know what? I think part of the amazing thing is that even though you're here in Ground Zero and you're experiencing that same experience could have taken place in the middle of Oklahoma or Iowa, because the intensity of the emotions and the patriotism and the feelings of back to basics that's come as a result of this event is something that's spread far beyond Ground Zero, as of course you're well aware.
It was interesting that when when we were here, and I'm very well aware of that, because I met chaplains and people who came in from other parts of the country who told us how the whole country is behind us, and what has happened here, how that has helped propel us and gave us the strength. Right, they're telling to move on and to do all this hard work that we're doing, and even today, almost 4 months later on. Right. As we stand here, there's a lot of hard work going on, and people are motivated knowing that they're doing something very, very important. We are recovering bodies, giving closure to families. The rescue workers are doing that, and everything's done with dignity and respect.
How do you compare this experience to your experiences in Grenada and in the Gulf War?
Very different.
In what way?
We saw the enemy, we knew the enemy in front of us, and we had to overcome the enemy. And our losses weren't that great. Over here, the enemy came, struck civilians, didn't strike soldiers. People left their homes in the morning full of plans for that night, and they then ended up being killed here.
But for you personally, your experience, what you went through in those two other locations when you were on the front lines, you're on the front lines there also. How do you deal with it in terms of your own faith, your own emotions, your own dealings with people? Obviously the dimensions of this experience is something that is far beyond anything you could have possibly prepared for.
No one will ever be prepared for such a thing like we had here. It just doesn't work. It's unfathomable to be prepared for something. There are no books, nothing written how to deal with this. You know, we have books of everything. I don't think there are any books for this. The experience there that I had was my mission was to soldiers to be there for their religious morale needs and whatever else they had, strictly for soldiers. Here, we were in the same role, serving soldiers, but we were dealing with civilians, and we were assisting in our own country. We were under attack. We never were attacked in our own country, so everything changed, dynamic changed,
right.
And therefore, for myself, there was a different role that we played in.
How do you deal with a soldier who comes to you crying or filled with emotions, just not able to handle the immensity of what their job is, and asking you for counsel as far as how to be able to give themselves the inner strength necessary to go through what they have to go through as a soldier?
I talk always positive. We talk extensively about what has happened to them, what is happening to them. But we look for the future. We always accentuate the positive. That was one of the things that I've always talked about.
Right.
Always look at go positive. You know, keep going forward. That's the only way.
Right. I know from previous talks that we've had that it's because of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that you're in this position in the first place. And I'm sure the Rebbe is a constant inspiration for you as far as directing your steps and guiding you in what you do and how you do it. Can you share with our audience a little bit of how that inspiration serves to be able to continue your work?
I'll tell you, the Rebbe didn't put me in a position. He only told me to go to the Army. Didn't promote me. He just sent me to the Army. Knowing, you know, just to share a story with you, when I went to Desert Storm, even now, in my helmet, I have the Rebbe's picture. So I'm always thinking of protection. The Rebbe's teachings and his love for all of us, whoever we are, wherever we were, is the inspiration to go forward. I mean, the Rebbe always was interested in the smallest of humans, the smallest of things, I wouldn't say the lowest, but the most simple of persons, as he was interested in the greatest of persons. And that teaching has propelled me to be able to do this for over 26 years as being a chaplain.
Well, I'm sure especially with some of the things that you saw personally and the experiences you've had here, you need that faith. And I'm sure it solidifies it to a certain degree, because if there would be any loose link in that faith, it should for sure find a way here of being able to break it open. But of course, as a head chaplain, I'm sure that faith is strong, and I'm sure there are other chaplains probably that you have to reinforce as well, who don't have necessarily the tools or the knowledge or the background or the depth of faith to be able to go through the experience of what they've had to go through here.
We don't teach faith. The chaplain corps doesn't teach faith. What we do is we mentor. And we mentor younger chaplains or chaplains who have not been around as long as the older chaplains. We have senior chaplains who do that. It's very, very important. And even during this mission, who's chaplaining the chaplain, we say,
right.
Who's taking care of the chaplain. We all think we can take care of ourselves, and yet some of us, many of us probably, the course of time needed, to be looked at as well. But yes, it's true. The Rebbe's teachings over the years and our own faith belief, whichever person believes in, not the Rebbe's teachings, I'm talking about myself, has been a very important source of strength. And
now, for people who see you as a head chaplain for New York State, al Lubavitcher Chassid, what kind of reactions do you get? What kind of situations do you find yourself in?
Well, I've had many heads turned, especially when they look at my shoulder and they see that I'm a colonel, and or even soldiers, they turn around and they said, "Yes, sir." They don't realize it, and as I pass by, or they say, "I'm sorry, sir." I said, "It's okay. Don't worry about it." It's an interesting position to be in, and it's more interesting than being a chassid in the Army. That's even more interesting.
I can imagine. In addition, I have another question for you. You're here in Ground Zero on a daily basis. You come here, you realize that you're on holy ground, hallowed ground where over 3,700 souls were lost and went back to their Maker. I know you come here and you do services. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what you do in respect for this area that you approach with great piety in order to be able to give it the proper respect?
Well, what I do here every day on a personal level in terms of prayers, I say the Psalms here every day. The Psalms to ensure that from a religious perspective that it's done properly.
Right. So you say that the portion for the day, for the Psalms, and I'm sure you help other people also in prayer as well.
Yes, anybody who wants prayer and who's in need of prayer and asks for prayer, we pray with them. And it makes a difference what faith they believe in.
Now, just in wrapping up, can you tell us perhaps one experience that you had, a personal experience, which made a very lasting impression on you in terms of not only your work, but just in being here in Ground Zero that you can share with our viewers so that they can get a little feel of what it means to be in your position and be here and be dealing day to day with the people from all walks of life, both in pain and both here as volunteers or workers, and what impression that has made on you?
Well, first of all, I want to tell you, Rabbi Teldin, that one of the chaplains that is in served in the Army National Guard is a Rabbi Chaplain Larry Baser. He's out in Halpog. He was one of the earliest chaplains to arrive on the scene, and we talked together. He was here practically among the first, if not the first, coming the same time I did. I'll share a quick story with you. The third day of this mission, it was Thursday morning, one of my chaplains came over to me who was not Jewish, and he said to me, Chaplain Goldstein, I have something for you.
Yes.
And he took out of his pocket, he took out a yarmulke. I said, okay, what's this all about? And he said that last night, which is the night before, as the rescuers were working through the rubble and the pile looking to save people, one of the rescuers found this yarmulke and turned to one of my soldiers and said to him, if you have a chaplain, give it to him. He'll know what to do with it. It was obviously the rescuer was from New York and knew what it was all about. And Chaplain Champa of the 1st 105th Infantry gave this yarmulke to me, and I looked at it, and then tears came to my eyes because I'd seen that it was from a wedding reception that was just 2 days before, on Sunday before. Very powerful experience. I photographed the yarmulke. I turned it into the police department. The photographs. I have the yarmulke. We're attempting to see who this belonged to, even right now.
All right. You mentioned concerning the blowing of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah. Can you tell us in general what happened here during the services for the high holidays, if anything happened for Hanukkah, and what that meant to you also?
Well, we were very, very busy here over the holidays, the Yom Tovim. From Kippur, we managed to get people. There was one small synagogue here. Soldiers wanted, those who wanted to go to a synagogue setting, they were able to get off a couple hours to go to services. And for sukkahs, we built a sukkah here. It was the most interesting sukkah I've ever built. The Army engineers, one of our engineers, put together a small sukkah, and it moved about 4 or 5 times, because as rescue work goes on, you got to move. You just can't let it sit there in the middle of the operation. But we did have the sukkah, and it was beautiful. And had a little.
Yes, because many of the volunteers who were actually doing the recovery movement were themselves Jewish.
There were people of the Jewish faith that were here, and there were people in general that were just curious to know what this is all about and why we're doing it. And we explained that as well. I wasn't here all the time. I had some pamphlets that I left on tables, and we had to replenish them all the time because people were just curious.
And what happened here for Hanukkah?
Hanukkah, we had a menorah here at Ground Zero. Menorah actually was sent to us from Chabad of the West Coast. Rabbi Shlomo Kunin made 3 menorahs. Beautiful fabricated 3 menorahs, shipped them in by air. We had one at Fort Hamilton, one here at Ground Zero, and one at the big armory where we had a lot of soldiers. And I was a pretty busy person, running from place to place, lighting the menorah, but we lit them. We had them lit every day. And it was very moving. There wasn't a large crowd. It was cold, but those who wanted to come came, and it was nice.
Very nice. Tell me, in the course of your work, I'm sure, especially in a place like Ground Zero, there are many people who come to you and ask, Rabbi, how could this happen? How could God allow this to happen? How could I believe in God in the presence of such tragedy and such destruction? How do you handle that, and how do you answer that?
You know, the old question, why do bad things happen to good people? In this case, yes. It's a fair question. It was a question that was asked. It's being asked all the time. The answer is God is good. That's what I tell everybody. God is good. Human beings have the choice of choosing between good and bad, evil and kindness, and these individuals chose evil. They're the bad people, and what they did here was beyond belief of evil. There are no words to describe what they did here. The lives they shattered, the thousands and thousands of orphans that were left behind, destruction, just the wanton destruction, and the ruined how many people's lives have been shattered in one way or another. So God is good. People are bad.
Right, and the choices really are is to take it upon ourselves to carry the baton and make sure the world does not turn into a dark place the way the terrorists would like, and to the contrary, to be able to, as President Bush has said in the past, to be able to make sure that we do acts of kindness, which is really very similar to what the Rebbe had said also. It was almost as if Bush was echoing the clarion call of the Rebbe as far as making sure that we all rise to the occasion and try to transform this darkness into light, which has been an amazing development that we've seen before our eyes as well.
And that's absolutely correct. You know, do good, we'll overcome evil. That's what I tell everybody. We'll beat the bad guys.
Well, of course, one of the Rebbe's major sayings that directed all of our work is that one candle in a dark room can push away a lot of darkness. And in this case, we've seen how one darkness has done tremendous damage, but we have to, of course, live with the faith that little candle, wherever we are, whatever situation of life we're in, we can carry the candle, we can have a tremendous effect. And of course, you're doing that as well. You're a big candle, I would say.
I am probably a small pebble in a big pond, but I tried my best.
Tell me, the faith issue. Can you tell us some other situations you've had, conversations you've had, things you've heard? People and the struggles that they've had, even amongst the chaplains that you dealt with, that report to you, will probably go through somewhat of a question in this area as well.
I probably won't comment to that, but I don't think any of our chaplains per se have any doubts in their faith. They're the people that worked in this area. In fact, they were very strong and resolute in reinforcing others. They saw the destruction, they saw the terrible tragedy here, and they knew they had one mission, and that was to reinforce others and counsel others and console others. And they did a good job, but on faith issues, this is a tough one.
Yeah, well, this is an issue, of course. This is the ultimate evil. When you face the ultimate evil, it becomes very difficult to know how to take steps from here on in. But just in conclusion, I want to ask you about your own personal life and your own life, how it's been changed since 9/11. For your own family, for your home, your emotions, your feelings, everything else about your life, how it's changed since 9/11. Can you share with the audience a little bit, without getting too personal, about how this has really turned your life upside down and how you reflect upon it?
I think I've slowed down a little bit, but if I've taken anything away from this, is to spend more time with people, your own family, and appreciate what you have around you. The person's married, his wife has children, he has children, and just try to do a lot better, because you see that what happens when people do bad things. So everybody's life has changed in a way which I believe is positive, but in a way that they want to give more of themselves to others and help others. I mean, you've seen the city just pull together people who didn't respect or weren't friendly to one another. It's just lots of things happened, whether it was planned or not planned, it just happened.
Well, like you say, I think a lot of millions of people have come to the same conclusion. Family, and of course, in our case, in terms of community as well. If you're own community and you live in a nice community of Brooklyn, and being close to that community and feeling a part of it is something that, of course, is crucial to all of us. And hopefully, if anything can come out of it, this will be it.
Emir Hashem, with God's help.
Well, Colonel Goldstein, I want to thank you very much, and please keep up the good work. And of course, we'll be in touch in the future. I hope there's anything that we can be of help with, that the Lubavitch worldwide community can help with. Of course, we'll be there to be able to provide that support and do whatever we can on our end.
Not a problem. Happy to do it, Rabbi Telton.
Okay.
Hatzlacha, Rabbi. Good luck. All the best.
Rabbi.
Take care.